astronauts aren't trained how to swallow their saliva in space?
There it is. Check it out, guys. That is so exciting. Incredible.
Hello my friends, I'm Kyle Thompson. This is Research Flat Earth. And as always, welcome back.
Here we are. After going into labor, the pilot informed the airline company and requested permission to land at Ted Stevens Anchorage Airport in Alaska. So an emergency landing in Alaska, which wouldn't make sense on a ball Earth, but on a flat Earth makes total sense because Alaska is on the way from Bali to Los Angeles. And I'll show you that here in just 1 second on the maps. But here you go. Here's the story. And yeah, onto the maps. And here we have a flat Earth map. Okay. And you can see that the route Indonesia, Los Angeles, and Alaska is in the middle. So you can see why on the flat Earth map it makes more sense to have an emergency landing in Alaska on your way to Los Angeles. It doesn't work the other way around. So, there you have it. Proof of the flat Earth on a plane flight in mainstream news. But people don't realize it. Thanks for tuning in. And here we are on our spinning ball map. And we have Bali down here, LA over here, and Anchorage is here. So if it was an emergency landing, it doesn't work on this map, does it? More proof of the flat Earth, folks, and of those fake flights in my earlier videos. If you haven't seen that, check them out. The Earth is flat, and that is that. Thanks for tuning in.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back. It's a Flat Earth Nation. Don't ever let them tell you anything else. I'm going to have a lot of fun tonight. This is a real lead. This is a real thing here, and I'm real happy to be able to bring an example of gatekeeping to you. Of course, I'm not happy that we're being gate kept and that we have to do it. But I mean, if they're going to try to kill us all, and we might as well expose it. The elect are not going to be deceived. I haven't been deceived. I'm trying to lay it out there as good as I can explain it, because it honestly is so hard to explain, to break down, because all of you flat Earth people that are working hard trying to get the word out. I mean, we're still dealing with whatever, we're studying really hard stuff, and people are asking us if we ever have heard of gravity, things like that. And that's where they want to start the conversation with, okay, you've heard of gravity, and what color is the sky in your world? So it's hard to just jump right into like, hey, I just found out, I can prove a gatekeeper, but I'm going to. And he starts with this. And the background is this is a guy who's a math savant. He's not a Christian man. He's somebody that is just fascinated with math, and he's got onto sacred geometry, and he is from Sydney, and he's exposing everything. And he has a couple of memorization techniques that are really helpful. So, you know, I watch his videos, and you know, I was like his 15th subscriber, and he's got like 120 now or so, you know, so he's getting more. And one of the guys that linked to him was this guy, the Bard Code, and I want to just give you a quick example here of what SGT channel does. And he has an accent, and I don't think, you know, we need to say any more.
Width of them
Make fun of people or anything, you know.
157.44 feet. The St. Andrew's Cathedral by Edmund Blackett is 157.44 feet. So I wasn't going to go into look in the dimensions of the.
Everything is 144, 108.
They connect directly back to St. Andrew's Cathedral. And St. Andrew's Cathedral is where Edmund Blackett was eventually interred, and
all architecture that has a Masonic engineers will be able to do this math that he's going to break down for you. He's fascinated with these people. We should pray. I mean, he's talking about, like, I just heard of Pike, and I think he sounds really interesting. I'm going to go study his stuff, you know.
Chief architect engineer John Bradfield and Freemasonic connection.
Another good thing that you need to do is that these guys that are breaking down this, because he's just one of the guys I watch, they're proving that you know what, I'm going to turn this down.
This Hermetic system, where the Hermetic code of the 7 liberal arts
so some things stay the same, but they're proving, you know, that feet, hands, inches, the mile has been around forever. The meter, the Doric scale. Wait until he shows you some of these things. We've only had one unit of measure, and it's worldwide.
The Great Pyramid of Giza. So we have 440 royal cubits, which is converts into 528 sacred Jewish cubits. Now, 528. So 5,280 feet per mile.
Columns, everything.
It's just a repetition going from the beginning.
And we know that the plane is flat, but they use the same math for curves. A guy like this is not going to jump on the flat Earth movement. Trust me.
Also, of course, references to New Jerusalem, and by default, references to the Tower of Babel.
Maybe not. I don't know.
Ark of Utnapishtim, as described in the Epic of Gilgamesh, but also connections to the Noah's Ark.
Even the amount of tonnage they say they use in every structure.
Happening again. These myths and these symbolism is enshrining science.
Just a couple more minutes of this, and then believe me, this is going to be worth it. You're going to really want to stick this. It will be able to apply to the lie, why they lied about flat Earth. And I started when Who's a Shill in November 2015. I said, okay, I'm not shill spotting. The Earth is flat. We've got that proven. I don't need to prove a map. We all know what everybody said. We're going to find other ways they lied. You know where we went. You know what we found. The megalith stones, the forensics, everything. It's been quite a year, but this is new. The fathom, the yard, the cubics, they're all on the standard, Ionic, the medieval royal. They all are either found in the ancient architecture or are written into current architecture.
It's exactly what's happening on Mrs. Macquarie's chair, the same method. So John Bradford,
Oxyhedron, all the Platonics.
Finance and the origins of it all connect. So even Mayan time.
What I like is that you only have to remember a few numbers. Okay. And anyway, he'll break down the bridge and show that this rectangle and the other side, and they all go back to the Vesica Pica. It's fascinating. So anyway, this guy was trying to link to SGT, and he's a gatekeeper. So, but before we get into his gatekeeping, I want to do one more thing, because this goes so far to show how intricate the plan is, and it confirms my theory, our theory, well, at least my Christian theory of New Earth Channel, Savoy, Inouye, Dr. Fermenko, they all with that Atlantis stuff, they were the ones that brought me, to the 1,000-year missing, and you guys that, now we know that the 1,000-year reign of Christ is over, and that the Pope and everybody else added 1,000 years to history, and we've proved it over and over again, and so did Sylvain, and so did Dr. Fermenko. Better than I did, but I got them with the coins and everything else, and with the dates, and even with the manhole covers. Manhole covers proves a flat Earth. That was under a different name, but that was me, and you know it. And see how, look at where the finger is. See the one? They knew that they were going to go with the globe Earth thing, because there's tons of videos on it. I've made them. Everybody makes it when we think we're discovering this, and it was really Sylvain and Dr. Fermenko. But that's obviously a one, not like everything else. So I have one of my other videos here. I'm just going to point to a couple of them here and see how that's an eye. And this is one of the old Boston things, 8 miles away. Year of our Lord, 734. Year of our Lord. That was an eye. And, if you're thinking this guy's crazy, I'm going to look into that, prove him wrong. Yeah, that's what we want. And so I'm just going to jump around here, see what I got. See how that's an eye. They say that this is a coin from 1670. No, it's not. It's a coin from the year of our Lord, 670. What's that coin? Help me out, guys. Moving to the next coin. That's not that might be a 1. But it doesn't look like the same font. Give me some better examples here, Alan. Okay, that's definitely not a 1. Wow, look at that coin. Was that a... No, that's one. As they got closer to the 18th century, they were... look at that, the eagle. I used to know what those years were when I was studying that. And I know I had some that to show both. Even those ones are different if you look at them. That's a J, and they would tell you that is the year 623. When that's a J, and we know when the J was invented, and it meant the same thing as the I, the year of our Lord. Part of the, the kingdom, the 1,000-year kingdom. Let's see if we can just pop on one more. That's obviously another J. That is not a number. It's a letter. And it's the year of our Lord, 78. Because that's not 1781. Not how you write it. Look at that. Man, what a crazy time that would have been, right? How come we're supposed to believe that's a 1? I should go find the one with the manhole covers. It's cool. J652. What's this one? Oh, we saw that. Okay, back to the barcode. This guy, it's like it's one of those. For him to say, "Oh, I discovered this," and he just acts like, "So I just got this. You know, I saw this picture, and I just was like, hey, look at this. These two empty lines." And it's kind of like how the old computer PC games, you know, they used to have cheats where you go look it up because there's no way you could figure it out. And they just explain like, oh, so I went over and, you know, on this next street up and raised the flag on the mailbox. And that meant I got a message when I checked the mail the next day. Craziest things. So just listen to this guy and it's his nonsense.
The original title page of Shakespeare's sonnets, as first published in 1609. It looks fairly normal for the period, except for the two horizontal lines that usually have critical information between them. The fact that they're empty is a clue that's been ignored for 400 years.
400 years, and he found it.
We're going to literally connect.
What? He's going to connect the dots.
Punctuation.
Okay, let's see how he does it.
T stands for Thomas Publisher. Look at the italic slope of that second T. It's actually guiding us to connect this dot at 1609 to this dot at imprinted, using the sloping T as a guide.
Oh, and it's
Is there any other
use
dot
this.
that's
You know,
drawing attention
why
to
didn't
it?
I see that?
Well,
And I thought I was so
the
good.
dot is only about 10 times the size it's supposed to be, and so
Wow, I don't even notice that. I would have noticed that was 10 times, but in case you missed it, he said that, and then I noticed that these dots, you know, like if there are any other dots that I need to be noticed, he goes, oh, look at this dot. It's like 10 times the size. And well, now that I notice it, you know, now that he points it out, yeah, it's bigger. Might be 10 times the size. It gets pretty big once you start expanding that pizza, right?
that'll be fine. We'll have a perfect.
Wow, it is a triangle if you use that slant that he just figured out.
Now, just as that second T was a guide, the dot after that second T is a guide. If we look where the 1609 dot is pointing through there and on up,
Woo!
is at the right edge, a seemingly random top.
He's right.
Line.
Look at that.
We'll take that point and connect it to the G, and it to the D, and again we have another.
Oh my
second
goodness.
triangle.
Another polygon.
Kind of makes you wonder about the second line here, and yes.
I'd check that out too, man. I thought I was
Dot
good.
left is the Aspley dot here, and if we do the same thing here,
Gatekeeper.
we find we've got 4 perfect right angles.
Who is this guy, right?
The last one is more than an ordinary right angle triangle. It's a perfect 3, 4, 5 triangle.
Oh man, Pythagorean's theorem.
Theory from high school.
He nailed it.
Plus 4 squared equals 5.
And this is all on the cover of that book, Sonnets.
What is this really?
Gatekeeping. Oh, I mean,
It's actually hiding.
sleuthing.
Perfect circle passes through all the 6 points. This is a visual representation. of
I've made some
points.
finds.
Thales' theorem, named after the Greek philosopher. who
I'm
said
humbled.
it was Pythagoras' men.
I'll bet Crow's humbled, right?
Thales is best known.
ODD.
The first person to measure the height of the Great Pyramid. of
We
Giza.
thought we could make
Did
some
it using
discoveries.
the geometry of right angle triangles. Now let's complete the image by connecting the 2 remaining intersections between the circle and the horizontal lines here.
That's what I probably would have thought of in about a couple hours.
Obviously, no one works at this level of precision just to hide some triangles.
Huh?
There's
No.
got to be more going on here.
What is it? What could it be?
I'm going to be really quick here and spare you most of the math, but to satisfy the academics, there's a YouTube channel where true geeks can duplicate the findings and double check their accuracy, such as this divided by this equals this, which is, of course, pi, accurate to 3 decimal places. The world's most well-known mathematical constant, the ratio of a circle's circumference to its diameter. Archimedes calculated it almost this accurately around 287 BCE, so it's no surprise that Shakespeare would know this. But this ratio,
what you might, I don't know,
as E.
gatekeeper.
Nowhere near as famous as pi, but equally important. Shows up everywhere in higher mathematics. But here's our first mystery. E was not discovered until 60 years after the sonnets were published. Sir Isaac Newton, in 1669, found it as he was inventing
I thought it was phi.
calculus. Jacob Bernoulli, in 1683, was studying a
Not
problem
pi,
we
phi.
all can relate to, money and compound interest. And he came up with a simple equation. It's the same formula used by banks today to calculate how much we owe on our credit card bill.
Thanks,
And
gatekeeper.
the amount we borrowed plus 1.718 is the maximum possible.
Who's the
compound interest
gatekeeper?
that is calculated continuously.
Who's the gatekeeper?
Equal is E, or $2.718, which we owe the bank. Now, both Newton and Bernoulli concluded that the total 2.718 was what was really important, and they ignored the 1.718 part. Consequently, it's not considered important.
400 years this lay hidden. For 400 years this lay hidden, and then he's going to connect the dots. These clues must be everywhere, is what the gatekeepers are telling us. They're to get us focusing on something else. They're gatekeeping for a reason. I don't know what it is, but this is pretty obvious gatekeeping. Because I'm going to be humble here as I can be and say, nobody's this much better than me. No way.
A unique category of prime numbers called
Not the way the Lord has blessed me over the last year and a half, and you guys know it. And nobody's better than you guys, because nobody's this good. This leaked. They're leaking this, man. If it was this easy, I'd be making a great video every day.
618, the golden ratio, symbolized by the letter phi. It's been known since at least 300 BCE. We all know its connection to the Fibonacci series. Phi is the only number that if you
So they leaked it all. You know, here we.
In this case, switch those lines around and divide one into the other.
You know what? When they were leaking all that stuff, I got leaked into geocentrism in 92. So
the Fibonacci series is derived from the basic connection of that phi to phi minus 1. And if we look over on the left-hand side, we see we have E.
Look at my friends. Remember where this started? He was going to clue us in on something that had been hidden for 400 years, and he wanted us to first start with these two blank lines. Something should be there. 400 years this has been hidden, and then all of a sudden he noticed, you know, the difference between these two T's, and that this one's just kind of pointing us, you know, like from this dot to this dot, past this smooth T, not this one over here. That's where this gatekeeping started. 400 years of secret, and he's going to break it down to us. And in his video, we're 6 minutes, 22 seconds in, and he's already bringing us up to speed on the Fibonacci sequence. We've already banged away at two Pythagorean theorems right in there between the T.T. Thomas Thornton, the publisher, you know, and hey, I'm still right about that. That being a 1 is pretty damn suspicious.
And E minus 1, a presently unknown constant, balancing perfectly with phi and phi minus 1 on the right. The Fibonacci series, it's derived by...
I think it's a rabbit hole or something. I mean, we already know everybody already knows all that. Right, yeah, and they add up to 17, the number we know.
To 1.61803. But there's a variant of the Fibonacci series called the Tribonacci series, which is derived by adding 3 consecutive numbers to get the fourth, and repeating the process ad infinitum, the ratio of these last two numbers converges to 1.8393, and its symbol is T. This phenomenon wasn't even studied, so far as we know, until about 1914, and yet here it is on the sonnets.
Come on, gatekeeper.
So we have.
Or is this the point where we're supposed to have just,
Fibonacci.
said,
Fibonacci.
excuse me, I have to go to the bathroom. I think I'm going to faint. This man is making me swoon. Oh my goodness.
We get square root of 3. Now the Pythagoreans believe.
Wasn't until 1914 when there's one man in the world who right now believes that was the end of the 1,000-year reign of Christ, the 1,000-year golden age on record. That's me. And boy, if anybody, my 80 subscribers, we have found it. We've been able to, and every step proves it. And they're the gatekeepers, and they're, so they're the ones that are bringing me to it. And I'm the one that's telling you, I'd much rather, be preaching straight out of the Bible or doing almost anything than being the only one in the world believing this. This guy's a moron. Anyway, the name of his channel is the Shakespeare Equation. A good way to spot maybe a gatekeeper or something like that is, this is his one-trick pony. He's trying to sell it. He wants to make money off of it. He's he's gone to Stratford and kind of proved Shakespeare things there, and he's trying to break into the BBC type of I've discovered this. And so all of his videos are about promoting this video and showing it. And even what we're watching is actually a preview of what he maybe wants to market, and starting with high schools, colleges, and then see how he does, because they'll be promoting him. He's the gatekeeper. This is his living. He's gatekeeper. That's what he does. He gatekeeps. So anyway, how'd you like that? I mean, I'm not going to... It was a pretty short video for me, but, I wanted to get it in and get it out. And if you want to... SGT, he has got a lot of good stuff. And I really want to just thank him for what he's taught me about Australia, and some of the people that I've learned from by coming to his channel, Dr. Schellenberger and the Vortex, and the greatness and the mysteries of water. SGD, he's not a Christian, he's doing anything, he's just a guy that is killing it in math. So anyway, it is a flat earth nation. Don't let them tell you anything else. And if they want to just tell you the world is a globe, tell them they're a ball-tard and say, no, 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 no.
Okay, I'm talking with Bill Kaysing, and Bill Kaysing is what you might call a pioneer in this whole issue of getting at truth and reality, and specifically in the area of the Apollo moon missions, what happened and what didn't happen. And when the module set down on the surface of the moon, the amount of propulsion that would have been required to do that, and it leaves no cloud of dust, no crater.
Right. Having seen hundreds of rocket firings when I was employed by Rocketdyne, I know that the jet of the lunar module lander, the lunar lander, would have created an enormous crater. It would have scoured the moon's surface. It would have tossed up rocks, sand, everything, and created a crater maybe so large that the entire lunar lander could have sunk into it. After all, we're dealing with a 10,000-pound thrust engine, which is pointed directly at the surface, lowered into the surface, and yet, if you look at pictures of the lunar lander on the moon, there is no disturbance whatsoever under the lunar lander's rocket.
And no dust deposited in the pads, the cup-shaped pads at the bottom.
That's another good point. Dust would have been blown 6 ways from Sunday and would have landed everywhere.
And then the famous scene, which has been played over and over, where they are landing there, but they're setting down, and you're hearing the astronaut talking through it.
Oh, that's a good point. Let's say, became aware of that only recently, that here's Neil Armstrong talking about landing on the moon with a microphone, and yet he's sitting practically on top of a rocket engine that is putting out sound levels of about 140 or 150 decibels. Now, we know that that is absolutely impossible to overcome that sound level inside the lunar lander with a normal human voice.
Eagle, we got you now. It's looking good, over. Roger, copy. Eagle, Houston, after yaw around angles, S-band pitch, -9er, yaw, +18. Roger, you're a go to continue power descent. You're a go to continue power descent.
Altitude now 21,000 feet, still looking very good. Velocity down now to 1,200 feet per second.
You're looking great to us, Eagle.
Give us a reading on the 1202 program alarm.
Roger, we got you. We're going at alarm.
Good radar data. We're now in the approach phase, everything looking good. Altitude 4,200.
Houston, you're a go for landing, over.
Roger, understand. Go for landing. 3,000 feet.
Copy.
Alarm. Altitude 1,600. 1,400 feet, still looking very good. 700 feet, 21 down. 33 degrees. 100 feet down at 19. 1201.
1201. Roger, 1201 alarm. We're go. Same type. We're go.
Altitude, velocity light. 8.5 down. 220 feet. 13 forward. 11 forward, coming down nicely. 200 feet. 4.5 down. 5.5 down.
60 seconds.
Lights on. 6. Down 2.5. Forward. Forward. Good. 40 feet down 2.5. Picking up some dust. 4 forward. 4 forward. Drifting to the right a little. Good. Okay. Contact light. Okay, engine stop.
We copy you down, Eagle.
Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed.
Okay, we've changed our graphic picture here in the background, and it's a one-sheet poster that I put together from pictures on the website www.geocities.com/Apollo Reality/. And the gentleman that put this together got actually these images off the Langley Research Center website. And some of these actually you're just seeing for the first time yourself, isn't that right, Bill?
That's right, yeah. I'm amazed to find these pictures. I've never seen any of them before except the one in the upper right. And what amazes me is this one here showing a model of the moon with a camera track, showing how easily it would have been to fake the filming of the moon.
And then the image just to the right of that shows like the finished moon.
Exactly.
With somebody sitting at the controls, maybe turning it or
Right. These are very revealing pictures, and I strongly recommend people with PCs to download them and study them. And of course, this brings up the subject of the death of whistleblowers. Men like Gus Grissom, who was burned to death along with Chafee and White.
he went pretty open with it, putting a lemon on
Yeah, he was going to give an interview about what he really thought about Apollo. And as you say, he hung a lemon on the command capsule on the day that he was murdered. And we should also look at Scott Grissom, his son's evidence that a secret switch was installed in the capsule to ignite the fire that killed Grissom, Chafee, and White. We could go on for quite a while about the death and injury to people that have pursued this Apollo hoax subject very diligently.
they went to a NASA spokesman who was Brian Welch.
Oh, yes,
And
right.
they asked him about some of these anomalies.
Right.
You recall what he said about some of the things they were
Well,
asking him?
he tried to dispute everything that the Apollo hoax advocates brought out. But the interesting thing is that about a month after he gave this interview, he was dead.
That always kind of puzzled me because he was at least trying to hold on
Right.
to it, right? So
Right.
do you think they would have actually killed him just because he didn't do a good enough job? Or
Yes, I think that's what happened. He didn't do a good enough job. So they killed him as an example to other people who are defending, like Richard Hoagland. Hoagland obviously is a fake, and he's an employee of NASA who on many occasions has tried to discredit me and my associates.
There are much better mysteries that call into question some of the photography, which I agree with you looks frankly hoaxed.
Well, some of it could have been staged and they could have released it, Richard.
Exactly. That's what some of my photographic experts that I've called in over the years, and I've been to Goddard, I've looked at the NSSD film. I mean, I have actual examples, Eric, of NASA airbrushing the moon.
Well, I know this.
And, but you see, I have a different model.
So you're saying they faked some of the photos?
I think they faked some photos. I think they've hidden other things in the photos, and I'll give you my bottom line. I think there is an enormous Apollo conspiracy, but I think we've been sold the wrong conspiracy to keep people like you, bright guys who are asking good questions, looking in the wrong direction, which these people are past masters at doing, because the real conspiracy is not did we go to the moon, it's what did we find on the moon.
I know, there's aliens
up there. They don't want us to know. And as I said earlier in the show, I found areas where NASA faked the imagery, I believe, to hide really cool stuff.
Okay.
And I found other areas where the photographs are consistent with us landing on the moon.
And it's possible, Richard, that some of these beauty shots were staged and they threw them in there and grouped them in with the real ones.
Exactly.
Next up, let's go to our wild card line. You're on the air with us. Hi there.
Our next speaker is Professor James McKinney.
If you double the size of your rocket, you don't double the size of your payload. So you're very limited. And now let's try and get to the next planet or out to the moon. We have to start sending individual things up there, couple them together, and then go out to these other planets. By the way, there's a small problem with going to the moon, and inch by inch, NASA is leaking out that they know that there's a problem there. It's called the Van Allen belts, high radiation belts of charged particles around Earth, and we don't know how to get through them, they say. Well, isn't that interesting, because there sure didn't seem to be a problem back in 1969. Obviously, they didn't go to the moon. The United States did not go to the moon. The Russians knew it all along. I thought at the time we did, but I've since learned we absolutely did not. And there's no question about it. And they're starting to figure it out. NASA has a program called Living with a Star. That's a pretty name for how do we get through the Van Allen belts. They have all their top scientists working on it. It's a tremendous problem because we do not have any kind of a spacecraft that we can send up that doesn't have metal in it. And when these charged particles hit metal, they produce X-rays. Nothing you can do to get around that. So anybody sitting around something metal in outer space in the Van Allen belts is going to be French fried. And so that whole thing was a giant hoax. And you have second and third tier scientists in the United States who are running around saying, oh yes we did, yes we did. But the very top level people, what I call the tier 1 scientists, the Black Op Mill scientists, know for a fact we didn't go. And it's a real problem. They don't know how to get through there. This picture is with the new Hubble camera, and it shows that in fact if you take this angular distance out to Pluto and you translate it into the surface of the moon, we can in fact resolve the landing sites, the alleged lunar landing sites. And the way you would do this is you take the pictures at dusk when the shadows became very long, and it would be a very hard thing for them to fake. So at any rate, we have telescopes on Earth that are much larger than the Hubble. Much better resolving power. So why, you would think these astronomers would be chomping at the bit to show you those lunar landing sites. And look at the incredible resolving power of this telescope we have here. Why have none of them done that? Because there ain't nothing there. And we get all kinds of excuses. Oh, we can't turn the telescope up there because the moon's too bright. Well, then all of a sudden we saw the full moon on a web page, on a NASA web page, the entire full moon taken with the Hubble Space Telescope. And you're telling me they can't take one little teeny patch of the moon, which is millions of times less bright. So bottom line is, they know they didn't go.
Join us now on a quest for the truth to the moon. In this film, we shall not only prove beyond all reasonable doubt that many of the official NASA images of lunar exploration are fake, but we shall also examine the motives for the biggest lie put before the world. Why did NASA repeatedly fake lunar images and photographs? Why did NASA stage lunar expeditions which did not happen? The answer will surprise you. NASA spent gigantic sums of money during the 1960s, but most of it was spent on the ground, not in space. Huge American corporations, many of which were manufacturing hardware for the military, made gigantic profits designing space vehicles and, more importantly, life-sized models of spaceships, and even huge stage sets resembling the lunar surface. Someone in NASA had realized that after taking billions of dollars from the American people, if they couldn't make it to the moon, they would fake it to the moon.
Obviously, if you're going to somewhere that nobody has been before, you need to have a simulator which recreates that environment as closely as you can. If you're going to the moon, you recreate the surface of the moon. And here we see a section of the lunar surface created. It's about 30 foot high, 30 foot long, 35 foot long. Scale is given by the two people standing in front of it. There were plenty of simulation exercises, but the point is, and this should be taken into account in virtually everything that is discussed with the Apollo program, 400,000 people may have worked on the program in total, but none of them had a need to know more than his own job required. The people who were making the rockets didn't know what the people who were making the spacesuits were doing, and because they had no need to know about that. Their job was to make the best models and the best simulation of the lunar surface that they could. And if we come up to this picture here, we see the 3 scales on which these models were built. We have here the whole moon as one unit. It stands about 20 foot high. We have here behind it a section of the surface of the moon. You'll notice it's curved. And here we have a more detailed section of the lunar surface.
What you're saying is that the images which we're told show a camera pointing out the window of the lunar module as it's coming into land on the moon could well have been filmed previously using these large-scale models.
That's right. It could well be that what we are looking at are films of realistic models. We have no means of knowing if they were actually taken on the lunar surface or whether what we're watching is part of the simulation exercise and the training exercise. And you'll notice here on these models there is a camera track. A camera starting at this end, coming down here, would approach the moon or appear to approach the moon and become ever closer towards it. This is a simulation rig that was built. This is the command and service module of the Apollo program. And you'll notice that the window here looks out onto a block here, and there's another one here. They're curved. These are the screens onto which the lunar surface was projected as the craft made a simulated approach towards the lunar surface.
Is what we're seeing a mixture of fact and fiction?
It is fact. It is fiction. It's mixed together. It's hard to separate them until you examine it closely. If a spacecraft is in deep space, the only possible explanation for a light seen through the window of the spacecraft is the sun. It's the only bright light in space. If it's not the sun, then it has to be some other artificial light, which implies that that particular image is possibly fiction.
July 1961. NASA was soon being criticized for the flimsy construction of their hardware. The first orbital capsules did not even have windows in them for the astronauts to look out of. One of the most vocal critics was one of NASA's most respected astronauts, an all-American hero named Virgil Gus Grissom, who almost drowned when recovery helicopters were unable to lift his space capsule from the sea. After a successful journey into space, Gus Grissom almost died through NASA's bad planning. Or was this an early attempt to silence Gus Grissom? May 1963. Astronaut Gordon Cooper experiences re-entry problems in his Faith 7 rocket ship. The prototype lunar module, known as the LIM, had serious stability problems. At this stage, there was no guarantee that even if NASA managed to get a spaceship orbiting the moon, they could land safely without killing the crew. Could the footage which we see of the LIM approaching the moon be filmed in a TV studio?
It was filmed in a TV studio. There's absolutely no doubts whatsoever about that. And the way that this film was created was by the use of models. There's nothing secret about the models. They exist. You can go and see them today. The models were very lifelike, very realistic. There is one that is a life-size model. It's in Flagstaff in Arizona. It's 2 miles long, and it's an exact replica of the Sea of Tranquility. photographs were used to create from those images the replica of the Sea of Tranquility, so that if it was flown over in a helicopter, it would appear as if it was a spacecraft approaching a similar area to land. So yes, all the scenes of the lunar surface were filmed on Earth.
Radiation, and without having spacesuits nor spacecraft which can protect the occupants from radiation, NASA convinced the American people to pay $40 billion for the space program.
The most lethal forms of radiation, of course, are at the higher end of the spectrum. That's gamma rays and X-rays. We know what ultraviolet can do. If you stay out too long in the sun, you get sunburn and skin cancer and die, and it's all very sad. But gamma rays, and X-rays especially, are particularly lethal to humans, unprotected humans. There was no protection that I have been able to identify. I've found no reference to it. I found nothing that will tell me what level of protection is offered. So I have to assume none was. I've contacted the manufacturers of the spacesuits, and they said there was no radiation protection built into the spacesuits. Because I asked them if these same spacesuits could be used by technicians to go into Chernobyl or 3 Mile Island, because the nuclear reactors produce the same radiation as produced in space. They said no, not advisable, no protection.
James Van Allen grew up in the small Iowa town of Mount Pleasant during the 1920s. He was an exceptional student, became class valedictorian, and exhibited an intense vision that even then looked beyond our planet.
The environment was the time of the Cold War, and it was something scary. It was something for a child that seemed very scary to have to hear about bomb shelters and hiding under our desks. And I remember first hearing that my father was going to go to Russia and being so frightened by that, and asking my father, why was he going to Russia? Wasn't he scared? And I remember him explaining to me that in the scientific community, what they do, and as they take data and exchange data, somehow that transcends what is going on in the political arena. So that there is always a sense that the quest for intellectual activity was something very special. Remember that, so that the Cold War suddenly didn't seem very cold to me, even as a young child.
In Washington, the media focused on the Explorer 1 achievement as at last legitimizing the U.S. as a worthy adversary to confront the communist Sputniks. The public seemed captivated with the propaganda created by this new space race. Dr. Van Allen and his students, however, chose to focus on the data that was returning from their scientific instrument inside Explorer 1.
When the first results came back, the group at the University of Iowa, this was Van Allen and Ernie Ray, then began to help with it, eventually Carl McElwain, saw immediately that there was an anomaly, there was something unexpected.
We have encountered a very great increase in radiation intensity, which is vastly beyond what could be due to cosmic rays alone.
We call it geomagnetically trapped radiation. And I gave an explanation of what my interpretation at a press conference following the scientific session. And one of the reporters stood up, and he was trying to visualize what I was saying. And he said, "You mean it encircles the Earth like a belt?" I said, "Yes, that's great. That's what it is. It's like a belt around the Earth." And so that's the way they got the name of radiation belt, from this exchange with this newspaper reporter and myself.
Well, certainly the discovery of the radiation belts was the most important discovery of the International Geophysical Year, because it represented a discovery of some major phenomenon that had a substantial impact both on scientific research and on plans for manned flight later on.
In late 1958 and early 1959, Van Allen flew instruments on Pioneers 3 and 4. Both were unsuccessful attempts to hit the moon, but their flights provided the Iowa group with essential confirming data. Pioneer 3 documented the existence of a second radiation belt, and Pioneer 4 became the first U.S. spacecraft to orbit the sun.
Any ill effects from the Van Allen radiation belts?
No. Now, I'm not sure we went far enough out to encounter the Van Allen radiation belt. Maybe we did.
Say that I'm not a chemist, I'm not a geologist or an anthropologist. I'm a retired electrical engineer. I've worked at NASA Goddard for over 20 years. I'm retired now, and I have worked with image processing, which is similar to some of the things that are done on computers today. However, at the time that I did my work, the computers that are so well established today were not available. So
Yeah, hello. I like your presentation very much, but I got a couple of questions here. First one is, what, if any, are the differences between you and Richard Hoagland concerning the politics on the cover-up? And part two is, what's the difference between you and Mr. Hoagland concerning the scientific implications of the face, especially since Richard Hoagland kind of brings in hyperdimensional physics into the picture of the face on Mars? Thank you.
Okay, the one thing I'd like to clarify, I should have done at the beginning, Richard Hoagland and myself are like oil and water. The second thing is that, and I'll go into the third thing, is that Richard comes up with ideas where he does not have groundwork or supporting evidence, not even evidence, and certainly not proof that things exist where they don't. For instance, I've seen some of his work where he has found swastikas and German tanks on Mars, and he has found cathedrals on the moon Europa of Jupiter that resemble burnt-out cathedrals from World War II in Europe, and various other things which not only can't be proved, but they aren't even evidence, and I stay as far away from him as I can. And there was the last part of your question concerned, I forget exactly.
Yes, he always talks about hyperdimensional physics,
Okay.
and he comes up with all these formulas on the dimensions of also the pyramid on Mars, and all these, in his book he has all these geometric configurations, and he tries to bring in hyperdimensional physics.
It's hard enough for me to give evidence and present it at conferences with facts that I can show to scientists, but to try to back up something with a relationship to another planet is so hypothetical that it just doesn't have the substance to hold up. Most scientists would classify that under the term of numerology and not have anything to do with it.
If you did like this video, give it a thumbs up, and if you didn't like it, give it a thumbs down. If you haven't subscribed, hit the red subscribe button. Also click on the little bell icon to get notifications of my Flat Earth videos, which I upload every day.
Astronauts aren't trained how to swallow their saliva.